Hey guys, long time no see. Last time we left off, we were talking about how Hitler had started the war, and so we're able to review and delve into exactly how this war began. But I want to back up a little bit and define some stuff. So to get you guys started, let's think. When we talked about appeasement being what? Think about it for 1 second. It's basically giving the enemy what you want, giving them what they want in order to keep the peace. And there were 4 things that Hitler did during this time of appeasement to try to be appeased, and obviously they didn't work. The first one was we let him put troops in the Rhineland. Second, Austria. We let him take his homeland of Austria, and if you recall, all the Austrians were incredibly happy about that. We let him take a small part of Czechoslovakia, known as the Sudetenland. He said the Germans lived in the Sudetenland, and he just wanted that small little part. So if they gave it to him, he would be happy. But then he went and took all of Czechoslovakia, as you recall. The last thing he did, which kind of ended appeasement, was he signed that non-aggression pact with the Soviet Union. So basically, we won't attack the Soviet Union if you don't attack us. And that is when the Allies started to prepare for war. Okay, Allies. Think about who the Allied powers were. Hopefully you've been doing your column notes. Okay, think about the Axis powers. Okay, and remember the Allied powers are both the Democratic column and the Communist column will come together to wipe out the fascist. We've said that a million times, so keep that in your head. And think about in your head some differences between World War I and World War II. There are a lot of differences between World War I and World War II, but as you're going to see that these wars kind of got started the same. America tries to stay out of it. We end up in it. So there's a lot of similarities as well. Hitler. I would have probably asked you if we were in class. So tell me, guys, what are some things you learned about Hitler that you didn't know before? And you would say things like he was an artist or he fought in World War I. These were some of the things that you guys would have told me in class. So as we always start our World War II lessons, I like to start with a little positive message. So let's start with this one. This guy obviously lost his legs, and he says, people ask how I stay so positive after losing my legs. And I simply ask, how do you stay so negative with yours? Something to think about. And don't forget, there was this little girl who said, and I know what you're thinking right now, that people are truly good at heart. Yes. And remember, Miss Cannon believes that. People are truly good at heart. Most people. So, human column notes. If you have not done your human column notes, if we were in class, this is what we would be doing right now. So stop this video and go do your human column notes so that you can get really good at it. Because if you know the players of this war and the leaders and what they believed in, you'll understand this war a lot better. Okay, so World War II begins. Okay, when did World War II begin? What do you think it's 1919, 1931, or 1939? Well, since we're not in the classroom, I guess I'll answer it for you. It could be any of these dates. There's one date that historians have settled upon, and I'll tell you that one in a minute, okay? But let me argue all of them, okay? So some say 1919, the war could have began because that is when we signed, or when they made the Treaty of Versailles. And if you recall correctly, the Treaty of Versailles was pretty harsh treaty and pretty harsh to Germany. If you can remember, we blamed Germany for starting the war. Whether they started it or not, it's debatable. I don't think they did. $33 billion in repairs, reparations we made Germany pay. They had to sign that piece of paper saying they started the war. We started the League of Nations, but the United States and Germany didn't. Germany wasn't allowed. The United States decided not to join. And that treaty leads to revenge. So could you argue in an essay that World War I, the end of World War I, the Treaty of Versailles caused World War II? Absolutely. And I think most professors would give you credit for that. Some say, China and Japan being in this war Is that when it started? Because Japan invaded Manchuria, which is this region right here in China in 1931. And since Japan's a big part of this war, part of the Axis powers, then you could say, the war actually started in 1931 with actual fighting in Manchuria. But that is not the date that historians have settled upon. But why do you think Japan would have invaded China? Here we're looking at Japan right here, and we're looking at China. So let's think. What could be some reasons Japan wanted to take over China? Okay. Land. That's an obvious one. Okay. The second one would be their resources. Resources that a Japanese island didn't have. They could probably get in China. Okay. And so we do end up fighting the Japanese in World War II, and we've talked about that. So you could argue, hey, the war began in 1931, 1919. How about when Italy invaded Ethiopia in 1935, or when Hitler took the Rhineland in 1936? You could argue a lot of dates, but historians have decided on one date in particular. So let's get to that date. And that's what you were supposed to write, land and resources. So pause the video and write that down in your study guide. And we're heading back. Okay, so alliances again. Just like World War I, we have the Allied Powers Alliance. Great Britain, France, Canada, China are all part of the Allied Powers Alliance. Just like World War II, we have World War I, we have the other side. They're not going to call themselves the Central Powers. This time they're going to call themselves the Axis Powers, and we've talked about that in class. And that includes Germany, Italy, and Japan. So I see we're missing two, though. What two are we missing? Think about it. Yes, got it. Soviet Union, because they signed a non-aggression pact with Germany saying, we won't fight. And America, who said, we don't want to fight. We want to stay neutral. But look at this world. Okay? Everybody in green was eventually, at some point, on the Allied Powers Alliance side. I'm not going to make you memorize all of those countries, of course. And blue would be your Axis powers. The different colors in green, dark green joined early, light green joined after Pearl Harbor. And we will talk about that more as well. So what date do historians agree upon? If I give you a multiple choice test question and I say, when did World War II begin? Your answer is September 1st, 1939. Why? Hitler invaded Poland. Take a look. Germany invaded Poland. Right here next to that country. Pause. Write down September 1st, 1939. Now, this is known as Blitzkrieg. Okay, and that's a big word, Blitzkrieg. It's a German word, and it basically means lightning war because they do it lightning fast. It's a very big surprise, and it happens so fast that everybody can't even get in to help Poland. Germany takes Poland in 18 days. That's a little over 2 weeks. Germany takes over the entire country. Again, this is known as Blitzkrieg. Pause and write that down. Okay, Great Britain realizes appeasement didn't work. Okay, it's time to go to war. Okay, so 2 days after Germany invaded Poland, Great Britain and France declare war on Germany. Now, I want you to close your eyes and pretend that you are in Great Britain. Listen to this. This is what Chamberlain actually said to the people of Great Britain when World War II, when he knew he was going to have to fight. And if you listen to his voice, he sounds pretty defeated.
I am speaking to you from the Cabinet Room at 10 Downing Street. This morning, the British ambassador in Berlin handed the German government a final note stating that unless we heard from them by 11 o'clock, that they were prepared at once to withdraw their troops from Poland, a state of war would exist between us. I have to tell you now that no such undertaking has been received, and that consequently this country is at war with Germany.
That was his actual words and his actual voice telling the British people that we are going back to war. Now, within 7 months, Hitler seemed pretty unstoppable. He had captured Poland, Denmark, Norway, Netherlands, and Belgium in still this blitzkrieg lightning war fashion. And as you could tell by this map, Nazi Germany is growing and growing. So after he takes all of those places, who might you think he turns his sights on next? If you guessed France, you would be correct. Okay? I have a cute little funny story for you guys. So if you guys can remember back to when Germany attacked France in World War I, France was prepared for Germany to attack, just like France was getting prepared for Germany to attack again in World War II. And so right here is the border between Germany and France, and it's called the Maginot Line, and this is exactly where France is going to build their trenches in World War I, and where they're going to fortify and put a lot of men for World War II as well. This is a big forest, so they don't really have to worry about getting tanks through that. And this is Belgium. Well, if you can remember, in World War I, Germany decided, I'm not going to go through a forest. I'm not going to go down here because they've got a lot of men down here. So they go through neutral Belgium and come into France. So now, fast forward, it's World War II, and France is trying to decide, where is Germany going to hit me this time? So they're thinking, well, last time we put all our troops down here, and they came through Belgium. But if we put all our troops in Belgium, they still could probably come down here. So instead of just concentrating in one area, they pretty much put their troops over here in Belgium, and they put some troops down here on the Maginot Line, and we're waiting for Germany to come get them. So Germany chopped down the Ardennes forest and came and took France. And it was pretty quick. And they were pretty stunned. Now, this is Hitler's little selfie, letting the world know, I just took Paris, as he's standing right in front of the Eiffel Tower. Now, I want to be specific about what part of France he took, because he actually took northern France up here. Okay, and as you can see, that's where Paris is. This is where most of the people in France lived. Down here, this part of France was known as the Vichy French, or the Free French. And they are going to do a lot of spying and a lot of help to try to get the north back free, but Hitler is only going to worry mostly about northern France, not southern France. Okay? Now, once France is gone out of this war, this basically leaves who fighting alone? Yeah, Great Britain. You can pause and write that down. And I'm sure you can think, if I was Great Britain at the time, I would be like, oh my gosh, we need help, we need help. And I would probably, if I was Churchill, be calling Franklin Roosevelt daily. Turns out they were actually writing back and forth to each other secretly. So asking, begging for help. They did not want to lose to Hitler. The German Luftwaffe, that is the name of their Air Force, Luftwaffe, outnumbered the British badly. The British had invented radar, and so they were able to see them coming, and they were able to send off alarms, and people could hide before the planes came. So they were able to shoot down some of their aircraft better because they knew they were coming, but they were still outnumbered pretty bad, and the Germans were pretty relentless in bombing London a lot. That's why I recommended the book, The War That Saved My Life. It is about two kids who are living in London while the Germans keep bombing London. And so the mother, and a lot of mothers back then, put their kids on a train and sent them to northern Great Britain and to live with, they didn't even know. There was, no way to contact them. They put them on a train. They hoped somebody would keep them safe, and that is what people did. And this is a story about a little boy and a little girl who got on that train and went north, and what happened to them. And it's a fabulous story. So please, if you get a chance, read it, The War That Saved My Life. Go ahead and pause and write down that Luftwaffe is the German Air Force, and that Britain had just recently invented radar. Thank gosh. Okay. So, like I said before, Britain was begging the United States. And, of course, we were sending them weapons and supplies that they desperately needed. A lot of people thought we should be helping more. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think we should have been helping Great Britain more? We did have some of our Air Force men going over and helping, but Some people thought we should have gotten involved in the war a lot earlier. Some people thought we should have stayed out of it. Definitely an opinion. But in Great Britain, they have something that we don't have a lot of like they do. When I traveled over in Great Britain, everywhere you went, they had what's called the tubes. And that is their metro, underground metro. And because of this, it's everywhere. It's underneath, like, everywhere you live in London. You're not very far from a bomb shelter is what they turned it into. So as soon as they heard the alarms going off, you know, that Germans were getting ready to bomb, you'd have enough time to grab your stuff and go down into the tubes. And you would sleep there at night, and you would get back up and carry on. That's where the term keep calm and carry on comes from, is World War II in Great Britain. So as you can see by these pictures, this was their life. Going down, sleeping in the tubes at night, coming back up, and carrying on to try to win this war. It did get really bad for Great Britain, but they weren't giving up. They weren't losing spirit. Now, despite months of bombing, Great Britain endured. But then Hitler does something hasn't done before, and that is he stopped. He would just withdrew from the war. He stopped in Great Britain and just left. And I'm not going to tell you why until next week. So stay tuned. But in the meantime, Great Britain still was running out of money and could not afford to pay for weapons and ships and supplies. And so it was begging the United States, please help us. And the United States was like, well, you got to pay us. And Churchill was telling Roosevelt, I can't pay you. You've got to come up with a way. So FDR came up with this idea of Lend-Lease. And basically, it told the American people, he got on his little fireside chats and on the radio, he told the people, American people, Great Britain needs our help. And I'm going to equate this as your neighbor's house is on fire. Okay? And if your neighbor's house was on fire and they didn't have a hose, would you let them borrow your hose? Of course you would. And then when they put their house fire out, you would get your hose back and bring it home. And that is what he wanted to do with our weapons and supplies and tanks and whatnot. He said, Great Britain needs our help, like a neighbor needs our help. And if we loan them, just let them have it. When the war is over, we'll get it back. And everybody was like, that's a great idea. Let's do that. And it was called Lend-Lease. And I mean, we weren't going to get our bombs back. We weren't going to get our blown up tanks and airships and stuff back. Or I mean, planes and stuff back. But it was his genius. It was the way FDR could sell things to the American people and make it sound like it was a great idea. And truth is, Great Britain needed our help. And he came up with the solution. So, yay, Roosevelt. So this was called Lend-Lease policy. So pause and write that down. Now, if you haven't looked in your to-do list for this week, I put in quotes and leaders that you have to try to match. Now, my lowest time I've ever gotten before on this was 5 minutes and 28 seconds. But keep in mind, they were cutting, gluing, pasting onto a piece of paper, and yours is computerized. So since yours is computerized, I expect you could copy and paste a lot faster than somebody could cut and glue. So your time should be lower than 5 minutes and 28 seconds. And do me a favor and do not look at the answer key until you've tried it first. So go through it, try it, see if you get it right, then check the answer key. If you want to try to beat your time, go ahead. This is one I'd rather you maybe just kind of go through and see if you could do the best that you can without keeping time, but you can certainly keep time. It was supposed to be a class competition, so I don't want to give you the answers. So I'm going to say goodbye to you now until next week, and we'll delve in a little bit more to World War II. We already talked about how America gets involved because of Pearl Harbor, so we're just going to dig a little deeper into Pearl Harbor and review that in depth. And I look forward to seeing you guys again next week. Bye. Just so you guys know, I miss you. Talking to a computer and a video is not the same as having you guys in my classroom. Bye.